Hi guys, Hiroshi here. This week's Tuesday Vanguard livestream revealed a new Touken Ranbu right line and the long-awaited Monster Strike boss units, Excalibur and Laplace. Just in case you're not aware, Monster Strike is a new nation that was formed as a collaboration between Cardfight Vanguard overdress and the Monster Strike mobile game. It comes with a completely new gimmick that's unique to the Monster Strike nation, so if you haven't already, check out my previous video where I discussed that in detail. With that said, I'm excited to get into today's new reveals, so grab some snacks and your favorite beverage and let's get it. Alright, so I'm not trying to throw any shade here, but I want to save the best reveals for last, so I'm going to start with the Touken Ranbu reveals. I'm sorry Touken Ranbu, I just had to do it to you. Can't escape facts. Alright, so here is the starter for the right line, Mutsuno Kami Yoshiyuki, and his effect is the generic right line starter effect. Auto, when this unit is rode upon, if you went second, draw a card. Nothing too special here. We've been here, done this. Next up we have the grade 1 in the right line, Mutsuno Kami Yoshiyuki Sento, and his first ability is Auto, when this unit is rode upon by Mutsuno Kami Yoshiyuki Toku, which is the grade 2 unit of the right line, choose up to one of your opponent's back row rear guards and retire it. If it is not retired, soul charge 1. And his second ability is continuous on the rearguard circle during your turn. This unit gets power plus 2000. Now, we've seen the second ability several times in the past. It's just a super generic right line bonus, nothing too special there, but the first ability is pretty unique. As you may be able to tell, the gimmick behind this right line is retiring your opponent's back row rearguards. Luckily, if there isn't any rearguard to retire, or if the opponent is running a unit with a resist effect, you can at least fuel the soul, which 2 videos ago I mentioned is pretty important for some of Touken Ranbu's units, such as the grade 2 in this right line, and Mikazuki Munechika, the man who rocks blue better than anyone else. If you saw my video that covers the previous Touken Ranbu reveals, you get the joke, so please check it out. Now, in my honest opinion, because its first ability is a right line only ability and its second ability is, to be frank, not all that great, I wouldn't run this guy anywhere outside of the right deck. Next up we have the grade 2 in the right line, Mutsuno Kami Yoshiyuki Toku, and his first ability is Auto. When this unit is rode upon by Mutsuno Kami Yoshiyuki Kiwami, which is the grade 3 unit in the right line, cost, Soul Blast 1, choose up to one of your opponent's back row rear guards and retire it. If it is not retired, draw a card. And the second ability is continuous on the rearguard circle during your turn. This unit gets power plus 2000. Again, his second ability is the generic power buff, which is nothing special. His first ability is similar to the grade 1's ability in that it retires a back row rearguard, but if there were nothing to retire, you get to draw a card rather than soul charging, which in my opinion is better. I like that the grade 1 and grade 2's first abilities present a win-win situation. I mean, sure, only being able to retire the back row isn't nearly as good as having the freedom to retire any unit on the field like you can with Eugene, but it helps that you can apply that retire pressure during all stages of the right line, which you don't get in Eugene's right line. As a quick heads up, I'm going to be comparing these two right lines later on in this video, so if you're curious about that, stay tuned. For now, let's move on to the grade 3. And here is a grade 3 in the right line, Mutsuno Kami Yoshiyuki Kiwami, and his first ability is continuous on the Vanguard circle. If your opponent does not have any rear guards in their back row, this unit gets power plus 2000. This is a continuous ability, so it's active even during your opponent's turn. And his second ability is Auto on the Vanguard circle. When this unit attacks, cost counterblast 1, choose one of your opponent's back row rear guards and retire it. Then, for each of your opponent's open back row rearguard circles, this unit gets power plus 5000 for that battle. Alright, so there are a couple of points I'd like to make here, starting with his first ability. With it, Mutsuno Kami Yoshiyuki Kiwami is able to stay as a 15k power vanguard, which may not sound like much, but there will definitely be times where this ability will come in handy. His second ability is just a very simple and consistent way to pop back row rearguards, which is great. I love consistency and I can already see uses for this card, like popping a Bobo Mine or a Gunozla. Also, getting an extra 5k power boost for each open back row rearguard circle is not that bad. With this ability, Mutsuno Kami Yoshiyuki Kiwami will, at the very least, be an 18k base. If the opponent has no back row rear guards, he will be a 13k base, which is nothing to scoff at. And not to mention, this ability also synergizes with Hanjin. That said, however, I can already see one glaring problem with this guy. So far in Touken Ranbu, there isn't a consistent way to pop the opponent's back row rear guards other than through the effects of the right line and with Mutsuno Kami Yoshiyuki Kiwami's second ability, which can only be used once per turn. And while I like that both of his abilities incentivize the opponent to fill their back row, which would strip them of cards to guard with and also somewhat gives Mutsuno Kami Yoshiyuki Kiwami the opportunity to punish the opponent, due to the lack of support that would help him consistently leave the opponent's back row empty, I can find some room for improvement. But of course, I'm speaking pretty soon because we still have yet to see all of the Touken Ranbu reveals. This is my favorite Touken Ranbu right line reveal so far because my favorite deck type is one that deploys control, so I'm hoping that he'll get some more love. With that said, before we move on to the Monster Strike reveals, I know we're all excited for that, I want to quickly compare this right line to the Eugene right line as they may both come off to be very similar. So here are the right lines for Mutsuno Kami Yoshiyuki and Eugene. I left out the grade 0 units because they're basically the same thing. What we want to focus on here is the core right line gimmick between the two archetypes. So for this part, I'm going to be comparing each unit in the right deck, one grade at a time, starting with the grade 1 units. And as I compare each unit, I'm going to pick a winner and a loser. Mind you, my decisions are just based on my personal preferences and are not meant to be taken as the best perspectives to take. Also, because I'm only comparing 2 units at a time, just because I picked one as a loser, it doesn't necessarily mean that the card is straight out garbage. With that said, I'd like to start things off with Mutsuno Kami Yoshiyuki Sento, whose ability I previously mentioned is basically a win-win, in that you can either pop one of the opponent's back row rear guards, or in the case that it doesn't hit, you can gain fuel to use for the next right line unit's ability. I would have personally preferred that the ability be something more like Soul Blast 1, choose one of your opponent's rear guards and retire it, but Soul Blast 1 to pop anything on the board sounds a bit too free, and I wouldn't like having to add something like discard 1 to retire, so I'm fine with this unit in particular being able to pop only a back row rear guard as a grade 1 unit. Not to mention, it's completely free. Nigel, on the other hand, doesn't fuel the retiring playstyle from a right line perspective. While he does give the Soul Charge 1, which is most definitely useful for Eugene, it's kind of lackluster in comparison to having the option to retire the opponent's unit. However, his second ability is very useful in that it allows you to easily chain retires outside of the right line. While I like Mutsuno Kami Yoshiyuki Sento's ability, the fact that I can only rely on him once during a match, as opposed to Nigel, who can not only be used several times throughout a match, but also adds more retire consistency, I'm going to give the win to Nigel. It would also be great if Mutsuno Kami Yoshiyuki Kiwami, the grade 3 unit, could have access to a card like Nigel so that he could reap greater benefits with his second ability. Next up, we have the grade 2s, starting with Mutsuno Kami Yoshiyuki Toku. I was okay with Mutsuno Kami Yoshiyuki Sento, the grade 1 unit in the right line, being limited to retiring a back row rear guard, as you're most likely not going to have enough resources to justify a retire that can target any unit on the board. However, when you hit grade 2, the chances of you having access to a counter blast and more soul is practically guaranteed. With that said, I don't like that this guy is still limited to retiring only a back row unit. While I like that this card's ability also presents a win-win scenario, I would have much preferred that it be something more like Counterblast 1, Soul Blast 1, choose an opponent's unit and retire it, or Soul Blast 2, choose an opponent's unit and retire it. Again, I know the draw 1 is great and all, but Mutsuno Kami Yoshiyuki Kiwami's main ability is kind of lackluster, so having the ability to pop any unit on the opponent's board could go a long way. I don't like that we're limited to the back row with this guy. Now this guy is Randor, and, well, he's not that impressive, to be quite honest. However, his right line ability is not outright terrible. He lets you draw a free card and fuels the soul to allow a guaranteed turn 3 Eugene toolbox. His second ability, however, is pretty bad, as Oshikuni is a thing who basically has the same ability as Randor's second ability, but it's free. I wouldn't put either Mutsuno Kami Yoshiyuki Toku or Randor into my deck at all. They're both pretty bad in my opinion, but considering that Mutsuno Kami Yoshiyuki Toku's retire is easy to dodge, and that his draw is not guaranteed, whereas Randall's draw is guaranteed and his soul charge is guaranteed to result in a benefit later down the line, I'm going to have to give the win to Rando. Finally, we have the grade 3s. Mutsuno Kami Yoshiyuki Kiwami has the potential to outpower Eugene, as Eugene's first ability gives him 10k power, whereas Mutsuno Kami Yoshiyuki Kiwami's second ability can potentially give him plus 15k power. However, the issue with this guy is that it's a potential 15k power. It isn't guaranteed. If you're only able to leave one back row rearguard circle empty on your opponent's side of the field, he'll only get the power plus 5k. On top of that, he won't even get the benefit from his first ability. I find that the main issue with Mutsuno Kami Yoshiyuki Kiwami is that he doesn't have enough supporting rearguards. On his own, he's pretty meh. But if he were to get something like Nigel where he could chain retire, then he could at the very least almost guarantee a power plus 10k. But alas, he doesn't have anything like that right now. I mean, sure, you can combo him with Hanjing, but if I had to pick between a soul charge power plus 10k or an extra retire, I definitely opt for the latter. And we're finally at the final unit for this part, Eugene. Right off the bat, I really don't like that you have to rest 2 rearguards to be able to pull off Eugene's first ability. Luckily, however, we have Nigel who is okay with being rested because he's going to pop himself anyway. Also, unlike Mutsuno Kami Yoshiyuki Kiwami, Eugene gets a consistent power plus 10k, which sits much better with me than a potential power plus 10k or plus 15k. Not to mention, Eugene's second ability lets you toolbox units onto the board, allowing you to reserve some hand, and it can also fuel his soul so that he can use this ability again during the next turn. However, I've seen plenty of gameplays where people whiff and end up painfully having to either call or soul charge trigger units. I don't like how Eugene's main ability is basically just completely luck based, as opposed to being something much more consistent like Bruce's or Barrow Magnus' abilities. Quite honestly, both Mutsuno Kami Yoshiyuki Kiwami and Eugene are, in my opinion, lackluster, but if I had to pick one over the other, it would have to be Eugene, because he's at least got some consistency in the power boost and is able to retire any unit on the board, as opposed to Mutsuno Kami Yoshiyuki Kiwami's back row only retire. On top of that, Eugene has units that he can gain benefits from, making his first ability even more potent. I'd say that Mutsuno Kami Yoshiyuki Kiwami has potential here, but for now, in my eyes, he's just a watered down Eugene. And that wraps up this portion of the video. It's finally time to move on to what we've all been waiting for, the Monster Strike boss unit reveals. I'm going to start with Holy Sword of True Bonds Excalibur because I want to save the best for last. No offense to Excalibur, but I like my waifus. Alright, his first ability is continuous on the Vanguard circle. During the battle that this unit attacked, this unit gets power plus 10,000. And his second ability is auto on the Vanguard circle. When this unit attacks a Vanguard, if your Persona wrote this turn, cost Counterblast 1, discard 1 card from hand, choose one of your rear guards, and stand it. Right off the bat, this guy reminds me of Bastion, but more like a Persona Ride reliant version. And this ties into what I mentioned in the previous video, where it seemed like the Excalibur deck will be more reliant on powerful front row swings, as the deck will come with 8 front triggers. Honestly, there's nothing to hate about an ability that lets you restand the unit for extra attacks. I dig it. Not to mention, his first ability is a guaranteed free power plus 10k, something I wish Eugene had. The only thing that I wish he'd have is the ability to give extra power to the restood unit like Bastion does, but it's not necessary. I mean, he's a very solid card. And finally, the Lady of the Hour, the maiden who has stolen my heart, Demon of Causality Laplace is here, and man, I just love her art so much. Surime girls are the best girls. Okay, so her first ability is auto on the Vanguard circle. When this unit that is boosted attacks a Vanguard, cost Counterblast 1, Soul Blast 1, choose up to 3 of your opponent's rear guards and retire them. And her second ability is act on the Vanguard circle. If you Persona rolled this turn, discard 1 card from your hand, choose up to 1 of your opponent's Vanguards, and its power is reduced to 0 until the end of the turn. Oh boy, I didn't expect anything less from the Queen. And just right off the bat, her first ability basically takes a massive dookie on both Eugene and Mr. Kiwami over here. Now, it'd be one thing if her effect said something like, your opponent chooses up to 3 of their rear guards and retires them, but that's not the case. You get to choose up to 3 of your opponent's rear guards and vaporize them into nothingness. All for just 1 counterblast and 1 soul blast. Dude, that's like half the freaking board and over half the amount of rear guards. That's pretty insane! But just to add salt to the wounds, if you Persona rolled this turn, you can reduce your opponent's Vanguard's power to 0. I mean, this basically means you're retiring your opponent's Vanguard, right? Because with 0 power, they might as well not exist. I mean, so you're basically popping 4 cards on the field. I mean, sure, triggers are a thing, but reducing the opponent's Vanguard's power to 0 is no laughing matter. Sasuga wagajo. I know I said in my previous video that I'd like to make a Laplace deck because she's my type, but honestly, I'd still make a deck around her even if she were a 70-foot muscular hairy man with Yago's face. Her effects are just straight out bonkers and I absolutely love them. Not to mention, I love control-based decks. The only concern I have is that overdress just started and we're already seeing a card that is this powerful, which worries me for the power balance in the future, but I may be speaking too soon because we still have yet to see what other support cards there are in Monster Strike. Maybe the rear guards are not as impactful while Laplace is just straight out rootin' tootin' demonic. With that said, that covers the 2 Monster Strike title trial deck boss units, and boy, were they a great way to wash off the sour aftertaste of Mutsuno Kami Yoshiyuki. Oh, you thought we were done, did you? Remember how in the beginning of this video, I said that I'd save the best reveals for last? I never said that it was for Excalibur and Laplace. So don't get that butt off your seat just yet because I have one more reveal for ya, and it's pretty freaking juicy. Ba-bam! This is what Excalibur and Laplace look like as SSRs, and if you know me, you'd know that I absolutely love looking at card art. First of all, the names. Look at that border, the font they used, and the rainbow coloring. It really ties into the rainbow art style of Monster Strike, and I can't imagine how beautiful it look on a holographic card. It also looks like the great icon is rainbow as well. Also, peep the font they used for the power. I mean, man, you know how the smallest changes are a breath of fresh air? I just like that it's different from what we usually see. Also, oh man, look at those signatures. They're rainbow color too! I mean, see, this is one of the reasons as to why I just love Vanguard so much. The artwork is so on point, and honestly, Bushi's really upped his art game in overdress, which I wholeheartedly welcome with all of my being. With that said, if you saw my previous video, you would know that the folks over at Monster Strike created Kaki Oroshi Irasto, or freshly drawn illustrations, just for Vanguard. And yes, this means that the art you see in front of you right now for these 2 guys, or guy and gal, my queen, is Vanguard only art. Not only that, but if you look at the yellow box to the right, you'll see that there are 6 other units who will also be treated with some Vanguard only art love. And these units will be available in the Monster Strike title booster. Going from top to bottom, their names are Gabriel, Uriel, Onono Komachi, Nostradamus, Abel, and Sherlock Holmes. Some of these names really stick out and I love them, so I'm really looking forward to their art. Well, to be honest, I'm looking forward to all of their beautiful Vanguard only Kaki Oroshi Irasto art, so that's gonna be juicy. And know that when it does come out, I'm definitely gonna be making a video on that. Now these 6 units, units other than both Excalibur and Laplace, getting Kaki Oroshi Irasto comes as a pleasant surprise to me, because I thought that the special illustrations were limited only to these 2 over here, but knowing that Monster Strike has some really striking character designs, we're sure to see some really nice looking units, which I'm most definitely looking forward to. My wallet isn't, but hey, who's got time to cry when you can get pieces of cardboard with nice pictures on them? And that, my friends, just about wraps up the new reveals from this week's Tuesday stream. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you want to see more content like this, be sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon to get notified of future uploads. My name is Hiroshi, and I'll see you in the next one. じゃあね